Hi, I'm James Ford, and I'm a member of the Empty Moon Zen Teacher Circle. And uh, today we're sharing some time together on the end of the month Zazen Kai, where we are continuing our exploration of Zen, of the Mahayana precepts, or the Soto Zen 16 precepts. Today we're considering the eighth of the grave precepts on generosity. Looking the precept up simply as a translation from the Brahmajala Sutra, from which our Soto Zen 16 precepts come, we get something pretty straightforward. Not to be stingy or encourage others to do so. Looking to versions offered by contemporary Western Zen teachers, we find a variety of angles, perhaps some offering a bit more nuance than we might assume. First, from Robert Aitken, the root teacher of our community, I take up the way of not sparing the Dharma assets. He comments on this. The Dharma assets are all phenomena in their precious uniqueness, the interdependence of everything in perfect harmony, and the absence of any abiding self. When I am not stingy with the Dharma assets, I conduct myself and say things that enhance my own understanding of uniqueness, harmony, and peace, and understanding on the part of others, so that my family members, friends, and everyone and everything can maintain their path of perfection. Another way to say this is, I conduct myself so that the original perfection becomes more and more clear to all beings. Ending the quote. Now, there's a lot to unpack in that, starting with the assertion of our radical interdependence. Continuing with contemporary washes on the precept, Daido Luri offers, give generously, do not be withholding. Bernie Glassman offers, using all of the ingredients of my life, this is the precept of not being stingy. I've always found his introduction of ingredients and the flood of cooking images it raises for me kind of wonderful. Gio Kinnett gives us, I will refrain from holding back in giving either dharma or wealth, with her own comment immediately following, since charity is the first sign of enlightened action. How could I practice stinginess in any form whatsoever? She weds the two uses of generosity we come across in versions of this precept, materially and spiritually. Norman Fisher collected three versions. I'm not really sure where the first two come from. Not to be possessive of anything, but be generous. And then, since there is nothing we can possess, especially others, we approach the world and each other with open hands. I love the image of open hands, which is often used in comments on the 10th Oxfording picture, the description of enlightened activity in Zen's great map of the spiritual life. Then he adds a third version, the comments that come to us through Eihei Dogen. By the by, Dogen appears to be the actual source for the 16 precepts version we use, while the 10 grave precepts are straight from the Brahmajala Sutra, adding in the 3 refuges and the so-called 3 pure precepts and taking all of them together as the 16 bodhisattva precepts. Well, he says it comes from his Soto lineage teacher, Ru Jing. It appears the scholarly community is largely in agreement it comes from Dogen. Still, they are ours, and taken together, they are rich. But back to the 8th. First, Dogen cites Bodhidharma, saying, quote, self-nature is subtle and mysterious. In the genuine, all-pervading Dharma, not being stingy about a single thing is called the precept of not sparing the Dharma assets. Then Dogen adds his own words, one phrase, one verse. That is the 10,000 things and 100 grasses, one Dharma, one realization. That is all Buddhas and ancestral teachers. Therefore, from the beginning, there has been no stinginess at all. There you go, from the horse's mouth. It's all subtle and mysterious. Not being stingy, but being generous is the heart of the precept. The many things are all resolved within our boundlessness. So, subtle and mysterious, but expressed fully in every generous act. So, what does this look like for us as spiritual practitioners? What does this mean for you and me in that rubber hits the road sort of way? Well, I suggest this precept, just like all of them, is a koan. Oh, yeah, as I say, all of them are. Presentations and invitations. The wato, the word head, the point of this 8th precept can simply be the word generosity, or maybe generous. But I also find we can approach it from another angle, perhaps with another koan. One I've sat with over the years and have found very useful, addressing the same heart as the 8th precept, is case 7 in the Gateless Gate. A student of the way came to Master Chow Cho and said, "I've just entered your monastery. Please give me instruction." Chow Cho asked, "Have you eaten your rice gruel?" The student said, "Yes." Chow Cho responded, "Wash your bowl." And because it is a story from our ancestors who want us to get to the point, it concludes with the words, "With this, the student had an insight." I've always loved this case in the Woman Koan, that grand 12th century collection of koans, those mysterious questions used on our Zen way. It features the great master, Chow Cho Kangzhen, Joshu for those who prefer the Japanese versions. Born at the end of the 8th century and living through most of the 9th, Chow Cho is one of the signal figures in the formation of Zen Buddhism. He appears 5 times in the Gate Anthology, starting with the very first case, the one about the dog and moo or no, that echoes through time and space. I've sat deeply with this koan. I've investigated it as a student, and for the past however many years, I've accompanied a goodly number of Zen students in their own investigations of what it can offer. And I'd add a few times when people have passed through formal koan introspection practice as we transmit it, when we come near the formal conclusion of the curriculum to the 8th precepts as koan, well, we find the bowl holds something for us even when we finished eating from it. Giver, receiver, and gift. Love, lover, and beloved. I found this case endlessly rich. It certainly can open our hearts in a wide number of directions. And, like any real koan, it can mislead the unwary. For instance, I've worked with several people who assume Chow Cho is rebuking the student. One even thought the master was annoyed at how his precious time was being wasted by the importuning of a novice. And the koan is a brush-off. Another took a slight variation on that perspective and believed it was a sharp rebuff of someone hoping for a conceptual response to Zen's fundamental questions of life and death. Better perhaps, but barely. Actually, both are pretty far from the heart of the matter. Rather, I found wash your bowls an invitation into the very heart of giving, the very heart of generosity, the heart of the 8th grave precept. The technical term in Buddhism for generosity is dana. That word dana is constellated with similar meanings in the other Indian religions, the Dharmic traditions, Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism. And each of these traditions shades the point of generosity somewhat differently. For Buddhism, dana is principally a spiritual practice. And as a practice, it ranks with our moral precepts and our meditative disciplines. As Buddhism, and particularly of concern for me, Zen Buddhism matures into its Western expressions, we seem to have come to these practices one at a time. Our interest in awakening, our interest in meditation, our interest in the life of the way. First awakening and meditation, and then for many reasons, some the tragedies of abuse, for others just the complexities of our lived lives, where meditation alone seemed not enough, and even the experiences of boundlessness seeming to call us to lived lives. The moral precepts have become, if a little late, a serious part of the package of Buddhism here in the West. I googled the term dana together with the word Zen, and the first page of listings and well into the second was largely a recounting of giving opportunities provided by various Zen centers. And certainly it is that. I know how in my days as a parish minister, cultivating that sense of generosity was critical for the continuity of the church. And practicality should never be ignored. But there is more to it, quite a bit, even in my parish life, and I hope always in the life of a Zen community. For some, dana is a practice that purifies one's karma, leading to a propitious rebirth. For others, it is a central part of a practice that cultivates wisdom. At the Brooklyn Zen Center's website, I found a critical pointer for dana as a spiritual practice. To practice dana is to challenge the ego's frame that in order to give, we must get. Dana is instead a trusting step, a confidence in the universe that allows us to open to life. So, we turn our intention toward this practice through which we deeply realize our interconnection to all that is. Here we're invited into something, and specifically the something we find in the precept about generosity in the practical wash your bowls koan. What we are invited into on the Zen way is to open our eyes to the connections. We are invited into discovering how we and all things exist in a mysterious dance of becoming and falling away. We and all things are constantly creating each other. The universe itself, it turns out, is a constant flowing of generosity. It is how we arise as ourselves within the dance of all the differing things, sharing, birthing, giving wholeheartedly, even our lives. As to our practices, first, our bare presence allows us to begin to see this. And the rest of it, it is an invitation after all. It is an invitation to respond. This is not a dance where there is an option to sit it out. This is the dance of life, and of course, the dance of death as well. Ultimately, in the great invitation into grace, which is possibly another word for generosity. So, we take up the way of generosity as a rule to follow, as a star to follow, as our true nature manifesting. A direct pointing, folded up with an intimate invitation. So, old Chow Cho is approached by a student of the way. The question is sincere, and it is met with all the gravity the situation calls for. Have you eaten? So much in that, so much. And when the answer is a blessed yes, then the next step, just wash your bowls. In another Zen text, we hear the line, like a box and its lid. Here the teacher and the student meet. Here the bowl is used and is washed. Giver, receiver, and gift. Love, lover, and beloved. Here someone has a need, and like Guan Yin, we respond. Here the heart of the world's generosity is revealed, as is ours.